And I'm going to go back to one of the things that you said about personal information, right? We had a conversation with a commissioner at our booth, and one of the examples he said, if my employees, if we don't have AI implemented, and one of my employees are using Chat GPT on the side, and they tell Chat GPT, hey, here is Sally Joe's housing application, right? Read it and pull out all the relevant information so that I don't have to read through it, right? Or whatever the automation is.
Yeah.
Pull it out. Where does Sally Joe's, application go once it's uploaded into GPT? Who knows? What you don't know. It is that data is used to train GPT, right? And so all of a sudden, all of Sally Joe's personal information is out in the abyss, right? So the last thing that you want to do as an organization is not talk about AI, right? And I think that's where some organizations are. They're scared of it. They don't want to talk about it. But I think step one is starting to talk about it, and starting to talk about ways in which you can use it, and even training the end user on how to use it and how you want them to use it. But I think, RK, it goes back to what is the vision for your organization. One of the executive directors that was on the panel said, the first step was we met with all of our employees and we just started having a conversation about AI, about Chat GPT. And we asked them, what are your thoughts on how we should utilize this? What are your processes that could be a little bit more automated? And so there was this information session, but idea sharing, and from there it was documented and they implemented some of the practices, but they had to go back to IT and change some of their policies to ensure that whatever they did discuss was safe and secure, and it wouldn't be pumped out into the abyss, into the universe. So I think if you're not talking about AI, you need to start talking about it, because it's here and it's not going away, and it is rapidly evolving very quickly. Small plug, I did put a QR code in the top right hand corner on our AI assessment and how we achieve readiness, or help organizations achieve readiness. And as RK mentioned, it's more or less an assessment of where you're at on the spectrum and how you get to the next level based on what your organizational goals are. So go ahead and download that. We have had some success with that in some housing authorities, actually. So RK, do you want to talk a little more about how we go in and the maturity model and what we've done?
Yeah, so there's another level of complexity that you're going to have to face either today or further down the road. Because again, you, your employees are already using AI. I mean, hopefully that doesn't come as a surprise to a lot of people. But your employees, the citizens you serve and house, are already using it. Your landlords are already using it. It's already there. It's first just getting a picture as to how is my organization controlling that, because there's another layer of complexity that you have to look at, which is you have to look at biases in some of the way you use AI. This tends to come more towards the reporting aspect. When you get into some like really super automation and dashboarding, you have to be very careful as to what AI platform you're using. And there's inherent biases that can be built in by the data that you feed it that you have to be careful of. A lot of just the basic interaction stuff we were just talking about, being able to translate a letter into 17 different languages, or being able to set up just a basic intake process for collecting data, or having your phone system automated through a lot of AI solutions, or your community engagement, all those sorts of things have a little bit of that. But when you really start diving into reporting and you start using AI to solution a lot of complex issues, or design a program for you for housing disabled vets, that's when you get into another area you have to be very careful of, which is the information I'm putting inside this AI platform, or the way this AI platform is set up. Is it going to cause ethical issues because there's going to be biases, intention or non intentional, that are popping into there that in your regular reporting and handling of data as a housing authority is simply not there, because you have a compliance aspect of it as well. So you have to be careful as to where you're going to marry the compliance, the ethical
Mhm.
aspect of it, and how am I going to be using some of these very skilled platforms. the best way to do that is the people doing that need to have that training, and they need to have that sort of understanding. It's a surmountable thing, but there still needs to be some education that's part of that. And that way people are handling the data, and not because there's an inherent bias causing a major issue. It's because even with some of these smaller biases, it's going to skew your data, and you're not going to get the accurate data you're thinking of. Because again, whatever you feed it, what information it has, the ability to share a knowledge base, which you have to be very careful with because of PII, these all factor
Mhm.
into how you can use the tools. So there's a layer of complexity that needs to be looked at as well as you get further down the road, or say you've already adopted this and you're not even thinking along those lines of, you know what, I really need to take a look as to how this information is being fed into the system and how it's being extracted, because there is something that's coming through on this that is potentially going to be a problem with policy or with the public.
Absolutely. I mean, it all goes back to, I think the best way to do this is to bring in, here's another sales pitch, guys, sorry, but to bring in a consultant, right? And do an overall strategic plan, right, for your organization. Because maybe you don't need to implement AI, or maybe you do, or maybe you don't need to upgrade your housing authority software or your ERP, or maybe you do. But bringing an expert in who is unbiased and shares an unbiased opinion can help you prioritize where you need to be, and what we can help you vision as well, and what you want your organization to look like in the next 5 to 10 years. But don't get stuck in the past and doing things the old way, because, well, as I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you can retain your employees and that you can recruit younger talent into these markets. So, okay, I think we talked on all things AI. Is there anything else that we should hit on in terms of NARO and what we learned? AI was really the topic of conversation. We had a lot of vendors come to our booth to share their products, right? And how they could help our business automate some of the processes in terms of RFPs and different things. So that was eye opening as well. Anything else that I'm missing in terms of NARO?
Well, the cybersecurity aspect of it as well, because we
Yes.
help a lot of housing authorities with their cybersecurity, their basic IT ops, PII compliance, remote connectivity out in the field, you name it. We've helped them with multi-factor authentication, um, reporting issues. So PII, like we talked about, still top of mind with a lot of people, because a data breach or a data exposure it's not only you're going to get a lot of questions from the feds, you're going to get a lot of questions from your cybersecurity insurance provider, which is very important to
Mhm.
understand how these policies are evolving. And if you have the tools as an organization to be able to show your cybersecurity insurer, or your municipal risk pool, maybe that's the way, or you self-insure, is understanding where that risk is today, because things are a little bit different than they were 6 months ago. And that strategic plan that you have that's 5 years old, it's probably not serving you very well. And it doesn't have a lot of new considerations that need to be involved. So PII, cybersecurity insurance are constant questions and things that we talk about. You mentioned community engagement tools,
Mm.
along with employee retention and recruiting, which is so very important. You have an audience that expects a lot of this technology to be there already. They figured you would have most of this solved. And because most housing authorities, as well as state and local government, is actually having a retention issue, even though the job market's changed a little bit, but it's still very difficult for a lot of these organizations to offer really competitive salaries. So you have to find other ways to attract them. And being a place that is actually using modern tools, I guess would be the broad way to sum that up, and not scare someone away because they're like, "Are you kidding me? 70% of my job is a manual process that I do in an Excel spreadsheet." It's hard to get people in the door, but it's also hard to get them to stay sometimes. And you invested all that money to find them. So employee retention continues to be a big thing, and even just the pressure from HUD to look entrepreneurial, to solve a lot of process issues through technology and not just hire another position. Or you have a lot of people that are retiring fairly soon. And so now I have this
Mhm.
chunk of the workforce that I have to replace. What are ways I can fill that with technology solutions? So that, along with, of course, ERP, which housing authorities tend not to call it ERP. It's their foundational housing workflow product, and their financials and their HR piece is how they look at that. Those are constant topics. And this year as well, funding's always a consideration. People are not too terribly concerned, but it's a weird environment right now as to how this is going to play out. So it sits in the back of their mind. If I really want to do this project, I probably should do it now because I don't know what's going to be there 2 or 3 years later. So those are the main things that we heard people talking about or we were engaging on a regular basis.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing that came up on the panel discussion, there was someone in the audience who asked a question of how do you coach your end user or your employee not to rely too heavily on like a chat GPT or language model. And so I thought that was an interesting conversation because I think that's good advice for anybody that's in the workforce right now. We can become very reliant on chat GPT, and how do we coach our employees on how to not rely so heavily on it. And one of the answers that the panelists gave was don't be a lazy chat GPTer. And what he meant by that is don't just copy and paste. Everybody can tell if it's you or if it's a robot, right? So be mindful of that. But do you have any advice to that question, RK?
No, it's a great point because you still have a number of people in housing authorities that have been there quite a while,
Hmm.
getting close to retirement. Um, I won't point out age brackets, especially because I'm getting up there as well. But there still are a subset of users that any technology change, and especially AI, scares the heck out of them.
Yeah.
And they fear it for logical reasons, because they're like, I don't use it now. Am I going to be able to use this? Is there like an expectation that I have to be able to use that, and I have to have a level of
Yeah.
proficiency in order to retain my job? So I think it's the change management concept that really needs to be tackled, and we've helped organizations with that as well. You don't need to send someone off to 3-day class on using AI. You could have a 45-minute session with users that still have questions, or they're like, I've never even used it. I barely use the apps on my phone. What's a good way for me to figure out how to use this? We can show the structure as to what this all means, because of course it's incredibly complex in the details, but the
It
actual
is.
overall summary as to how AI works, and the purpose behind it can be very easily put together, in a 2 or 3 minute discussion so that they understand what it is and most importantly what it's not, because I think that's what people fear. It's the fear of the unknown. So very very astute and very important question and concept to deal with, because it's not just hiring younger talent coming in and they're already using this and they're expecting it to be able to use it in their job. You still got people that are like, I don't know how this technology is going to affect me. You have a lot of executive directors out there who actually sort of fear
Mhm.
the technology, not because they don't like it, because they feel like I don't understand it because I don't spend every day working on it. So the change
Right.
management aspect of the messaging so important.
It is very important. A lot of people feel as though AI is going to replace their jobs, right? And our messaging is always, it's not going to replace your job. It's going to make your job easier, but you better know how to use it, because somebody else behind you will. So just making sure that you're staying up to date. And as RK mentioned, engaging with our content, reaching out to us, letting us know what you need in terms of training, and just having a conversation with your employees of your organization around what it can do for you, and ask them what they need in terms of automation, and gather their insights.
No,
Well, we're going, oh,
a,
go ahead.
yeah, that's a great point, Megan. You need to be able to look at what your current job description is, which
Hmm.
probably has like 25 things on there, and you're only able to do 7 of them most days. Be able to look
Right.
at what your job responsibility is, figure out what you can automate and make easier through AI so you can focus on these other duties. So yeah, you're exactly right. It's not that AI is just going to come and just replace your entire job. It's going to give you the tools to be more efficient at what you're doing so you can focus on other things. It'll help your job evolve in a lot of situations.
It really will. And one of the other things one of the panelists said is, the time is now. It is time for each of us individually to focus on how we can change and become more efficient. But it takes each of us having that mindset and being willing to change, right? Because things are evolving very rapidly. And again, you don't want to be left in the dust.